Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. And on this episode, this is the one you're going to want to save. Create a playlist and save it. You're going to want to download it to your phone, however you're listening to it, because this episode you're going to want to listen to over and over again. I have one of our trusted GIP partners, Ron Brooks, the president of River City Capital, and we are talking about how to become a bankable business. We are demystifying all of these myths about lending, and we are telling the truth. Imagine us like being at the family reunion. We all sitting outside in our patio chairs, waiting on the stuff to come off the grill. We having that type of conversation. So, whatever you got to do to save this podcast, we got almost about an hour. Because you're going to want to listen to this more than one time. Go ahead and get yourself ready. Let's get to it. Welcome, y'all, from Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. I am your host, Sonia Jones of GIP Financials, your Mr. Miyagi of Money. And what we do, we help entrepreneurs know their numbers. Simple as that. And I have the man with the master plan here because I told you guys, like when we are talking about knowing your numbers, I want to bring people on here that are live in the field doing the things that are helping entrepreneurs get from point A to point B, right? And you know, Sonya is not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you the truth when it comes to your numbers. And when we talk about, knowing your numbers, we always have an end goal, right? And that end goal is funding. Our vision is for every entrepreneur to get the funding that they deserve. And who better to talk about that than the president of River City Capital, serial entrepreneur. And I cannot talk about Ron without saying that he is my frat brother, a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, constitutionally bound. I went there today. Yes. So welcome, Ron, to the podcast.
Sonia, thank you so much for that great intro, and definitely shout out to one Zeta.
Yeah.
Let me just keep it that way. Let me keep it to Zeta. One Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated.
That's right. Whether it's Sigma or Zeta, it's all Phi Beta. There you go.
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. That's right. So, Ron, tell us a little bit about yourself and River City Capital.
Yeah, so, Sonia, River City Capital, we started back in 2010. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of an organization called Community Lift. And LIFT is an acronym for Leveraging Investments for Transformation. So that's what we do. Community Lift focuses on community development, working with CDCs across Memphis to build their capacity and their capacity then serve residents and neighborhoods. We serve as the economic development arm as what's called a Community Development Financial Institution, or CDFI. So we're certified by the Department of Treasury, and we provide what I like to call, Sonia, readiness for and access to capital. For us, that's up to $250,000 for entrepreneurs, and what I like to really term as up and coming areas of Memphis, areas that are low to moderate income. We want to be able to help boost those up, and to do so through small business that create outcomes around job growth and tax revenue increases and opportunities for people to live, work, and play in their very community. And so, like I said, we've been doing that now over 14, heading towards 15 years. And for myself, I was a banker by trade, a little over 21 years in the banking industry, and was part of the early stages of River City Capital, and then came back as president in 2021. And we've experienced, really some very significant growth. We've doubled the size of the organization during that time as far as assets, from 3.4 million to now 7 million plus during that time span, and been able to really deploy some capital to some really great people who are building really great businesses. And for yourself, and I'm excited, GIP Financials and Sonia being a technical assistance partner of River City Capital. So we're very appreciative of that and the support work that you and your team have done with a few of our clients that have helped make them better. And they've learned a lot too.
Absolutely. It's definitely an honor to serve in that capacity, especially because in one of the things that I have to step on my soapbox about when we hear about workshops, and particularly about being businesses being bankable and funding and things like that. They talk about the advantages and the testimonials about people getting funding, but in a lot of those workshops that I've been in, not River City Capital, I'm telling you that right now. But they don't talk about the essence of it. Is like you have to have organized financials. You have to have strong and clean books in order to do that, right? And that's one of the things I love about Ron. And when he talks about being bankable, he never forgets the fundamentals when we're talking about bookkeeping. So going into that, I'm segueing into why we're here today. So Ron, if y'all follow Ron on LinkedIn, 'cause Ron be over here preaching. Ron be over here straight preaching and giving it to the people, right? So he had a post in December of last year, and as soon as I
Uh-oh.
saw this post, I messaged him like, Doc, we gotta talk about this. We gotta talk about this like immediately, right? On the podcast. So I'm just gonna read to you guys um the introduction to his post, right? So he's addressing entrepreneurs. So he's saying, struggling to secure funding for your business. Here's why it's not the bank's fault. It's your business structure. Let's fix that. So too often, entrepreneurs think banks are turning them down simply because they're too small or they're new. But the truth is, your business may not be bankable. And so that's why I was like, you sure right, Ron. You sure right. I will be in the workshops and the folks like, well, I don't know about this. Nobody told us about that. And I don't, they try to hold us back in this 75% of blah, 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 da, da, da. And I was like, and at the end of the day, friend, you still got to know your numbers.
Gotta know it. Gotta know it.
You got to know it. And I always kind of compare it to like one of my opportunities for growth is social media, right? And content. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys,
But you
like,
do a great job with that though, Sonia. Come on.
but,
Don't sell yourself short. You be on there cutting up.
thank you, Fred. Thank you. But you know what? I had to admit, and this is the reason why I'm bringing my personal story up because it matches what people think about bookkeeping. So
Mm.
when I first started, right, it was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna watch a couple of courses and I'm gonna do this myself, right? I've been doing it, and then we started getting busy. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not posting as much. And then I started
Mm-hmm.
whining about we ain't getting no sales. It's because you're not posting enough. Then I started, well, let me start hiring people, right? And then I started hiring people that I thought what you spend, you get what you pay for. Let me just say it like that.
100%.
You get what you pay for. But then I had to be a big girl, Fred. I had to be a big girl. Say, you know what? In order for me to get the results that I need for GIP, to get the eyes on our business, in order for us to convert into sales, I'm going to have to step my game up. And so if y'all have seen the trajectory and the progress of our content, it's gone from like it's good, but it's like y'all why are y'all doing some stuff, right? So I hired a business called Create Memphis, young lady by the name of Jasmine, and she has her creativity knows no bounds. So I hired her, and I hired a soror of ours named Delilah, and she is my
Oh
social
yeah.
manager, right? And so I had to change my investments. I had to move some money around to invest in the things that I know is going to take me from point A to point B. So with that being said, because I saw Ron laugh because he knew the journey I was talking about. So when you
Right.
doing your when talking about entrepreneurs in your books, half time you ain't even looking at this stuff. You just worry about getting money, right? Between Cash App and Zelle and Venmo and PayPal and all that Square and all that. And then when
Right.
it's time for you to start getting grants, you excited about getting grants, and then you start pouting because you're not getting any grants. And that's when all the fussing and the complaining starts. And then you go to these workshops that Ron and be, hosting and BBA and all that. Then you come up there, well, I just want to know why this ain't happening, because ain't nobody telling us, blah, blah, blah. Friend, it's because you have not invested in getting your books organized, right? In order for you to get those and be, bankable, or even having the presence, right, to present yourself to a lender or to a grantor, right? Your numbers have to be not only present, but they have to tell a story, right, of what you
All day long.
need, right? So how did I do, Ron? Did I do it?
You did tremendous. And let me jump in with you, Sonia,
Yeah.
because you in your story, you highlighted a number of things that I want to make sure your audience recognizes. One was that very word, recognition. You recognize a need in your business,
Mm-hmm.
which means that you're astute, you're in tune with your business, right? And that in tuneness, you're looking at, okay, again, the language of business is numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say that again. The language of business is numbers. So people come about they don't like numbers and all that. Get over that if you'll be in business, right? If you don't like numbers, you gotta go to Walmart and greet folk as they come in the door. Then you gotta worry about no numbers.
Right.
You want to have business, you got to worry about numbers, right? So you saw the numbers, and the numbers were not where you wanted them to be. And notice what you did. You didn't start pointing fingers at nobody and all that. You looked right at yourself and said, "We've got to be better." It means I got to be better,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the key thing is the recognition. Then the other word you used was invest, right? You didn't expect nobody else to come make no investment. You wasn't looking for no manna from heaven and all this. You had to go make the investment,
Right.
right? You ain't gonna sit at altar call at church and talk about, and take up folks' whole day and stuff, because they gotta listen to you. You went and made the investment in your business, and that investment included money, but also what I heard you say was the time, because it's one thing to hire folks, it's another thing, like you say you get what you pay for. You have to make the proper investment, but you also have to invest the big asset, which is the time to work with those folks to share with them your vision, right? Because they can only execute what you ask them to execute, and it's only going to be as good as your ability to direct and lead them. So those are some of the key things when you think about becoming bankable, right, Sonia? Is those two things you got to be able to recognize, but you also have to be able to invest. And one of the things that we see a lot of times is people treat lenders a lot of times now like sports betting, right? They treat the game like sports betting. All right, I'm gonna take $5, and they say there's an over under on John Morant scoring 30 points, right? So I'm gonna put $5 in, but I want Sonia and Ron to put 1,000 in, and then if John Morant scores 30 points, I get the winnings. If he don't, Sonia and Ron take the little loss.
Mm-hmm.
That I tell you, that does not work. Again, the language of business is numbers. And so that's why I talk about business planning from a GPS analogy standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your GPS is only going to tell you where to go and start doing something. You start moving. When you type in the address and you just sit there, guess what the GPS going to do? All it's going to do is keep updating your time of arrival. And it's going to
Right.
push it back later and later
Yep.
the more you sit there and don't do nothing.
Ooh.
So the key to your audience is notice Siri don't say nothing until you start moving. Even if you move the wrong direction. What is Siri gonna do? She gonna recalculate, say, look, Ron, you dummy. I said, go, I made make it right, not left. Right? And so at least if you make the wrong turn, you can turn, it'll redirect you. But if you just sit there and don't do nothing, then it don't go nowhere. So it's the same thing with the finances in your business. Your
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeping and in your tracking of the ins and outs of how resources move through your company, Sonia, like you said, it's so important, it's so critical. And it's critical for you as a business owner, not just to appease a lender, a bank, a CDFI, whoever. The business owner has to know it. That's what you demonstrate. You know the numbers, right? And you know, like you mentioned, the narrative and the story that drives it. And you can explain it or articulate it. So for your audience, that's one of the key things is you got to become a good study. Like the book says, study to show yourself approved.
Oh
That's
yeah.
talking about everything. That's talking about how you study people, how you study your industry. That's how you show yourself approved. You want to get approved for a loan? Study. Book told you that 1,000 years ago. Thousands of years ago. Study to show yourself approved. That's how you get approved for a loan. Study to show yourself approved. Study, know your numbers, what drives them. Have professionals like you and your team help you do that, like you've helped our clients to be able to understand, you know, what is the balance sheet, what is the income statement, what is the information telling me about my business and about myself, how I'm leading the business. And once I can do that and I can articulate, then I can articulate why do I need capital, right? And let me just say this real quick because I don't want to dominate the conversation. A lot of folks come to folks because they have personal issues and they try to get larger dollars and they know they can't get that on the consumer side. Right? A $500 consumer card ain't gonna help them. Right? Let's keep it real. So they know if they want to get 25,000, they go in a business, so they go register a business. They fall out of bed one night, kind of like how the preachers do, right? They all got called to preach on Tuesday, every one of them. It's always a Tuesday night, no other day of the week. So a lot of these folks, they fall out of bed at night, they create an LLC, and they come flying into your office or flying into my office, and they want candy. And we're not candy men or ladies, right? You gotta have a business, right? And that's the thing. You got to know the numbers of what you're doing, right? You got to be tracking them, and you got to be able to compel me on why I should make an investment in you. Why should I invest in you? It starts with investing in yourself. You ain't invested in yourself, I'm not going to invest in you, right? If you don't understand where you're going, I ain't getting in the car with you.
Mm-mm.
It's on you get in the car, nobody. Where we going, man? I don't know. Like they start driving. You don't know where you're going. They lock the door and no, wait, hold on. We got to know where we're going.
Right.
And so those are the key things, Sonia, that really spark your journey. And I've seen it. And so I commend you and your team, in a lot of the content. And I notice it's not salesy, right? What you're doing is you're educating and you're making awareness, right? You're not jumping on the screen like them old used car sales folk and, GIP Financial, get 50% off, they ain't about you. It ain't about your credit, it's about you.
Mm-mm. Nope.
You're not doing that. And so I commend you and your team for that. That's really dope.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. As you were talking, I took some notes, but just to piggyback off what you said, especially in our industry, a lot of businesses, whether it's a small business or nonprofit, they come to us already beat up. To be quite honest, because
Yeah.
they did not take the proper investment ahead of time, right? Or they trusted people that, just like you said, it came out of there like salespeople. I'll give you since we in tax season, let me
Yeah.
just go ahead and go there. So you'll see a lot of advertisements about um, tax preparers getting you the largest refund that you've ever experienced in your whole life, right? And then we have most of our clients are single member LLCs where you have to file your personal return. And if you're in that mindset of getting a return, then you already lost because every year that Schedule C has a negative number in that that net income area. Because Ron never gonna ask you about your tax returns. They gonna ask to see them. And every year it's negative number, negative number, negative number. Now it'll be a difference if it's like negative 10,000, negative 5,000. If they can see some growth, at least they got something to kind of work with. But if it's just like negative 10, negative 24, negative 35, stuff like that, we like, friend, what we doing? You're actually showing that your business does not have profit and it's not sustaining any profit. Where does that come from? 99.9% of the time, you spending the money. You spent all the money, friend.
Right.
you know? And so the reason why we create the content that we create is to develop know, like, and trust, because we're here to show you, like, hey, we're here to help you, not to, we don't use any like large language to go over your head, because people like to do that to intimidate people, you know, and things like that. We don't do that. I'm an educator, so it's not even in my DNA. I like breaking things down. Like I always talk about when we talk about the financial reports, I always compare it to a tree, right? Things like that. Nice little cute little colorful little diagram, things like that. So it's really important that for us to be able to meet our prospective clients where they are. And even when we do a lot of community outreach, as well, we do a lot of workshops intentionally because we want to meet the people where they are. The newer that the business is, we feel like if we can get in front of them, we can position them to be, stronger as their business grows. So that's one thing. So thank you, Ron, for addressing that. But when you talked about asset being an asset, time being your most important asset, and you were talking about that GPS, y'all. You remember me talking about Jazz, right, and Create Memphis. Let me walk you through how much time I spent with her and what my outcome was.
Yeah.
So I hired Jazz to do a month's worth of content for me, right?
Right.
We do 1 hour for strategy where we share ideas, and I have to kind of tell her like what we want to do, because I want to make sure that my content stretches from GIP Academy to the podcast, everything, so it all kind of touches together in some
Yeah.
capacity. Once she does that, the next time we meet, we do content. We spend 4 hours together to record
Mm.
all the content. The week after that, she's editing videos and things like that. She'll send them to me in Notion for me to approve. And then I've got a whole month's worth of content. Delilah goes in and schedules it all, and I'm good. I don't have to touch it. The only thing I have to do is, I check every day, engage and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah.
So I take 5 hours a month to batch content. And what do I get? I don't have to touch my social media for a whole month, right?
Mm.
And I got somebody else helping me,
Yeah.
right? So with that being said, when Ron was talking about that GPS, every time that you invest in someone or you try to do it on your, well, you cost too much. I might well just do it by myself. You rerouting,
Right.
and then when it's tax time, hello, you hadn't touched any of your 2024 financials. I
Hmm.
had to tell one of my clients this because I had a client that's been basically talking to me like once a quarter about, I need to talk to you about this. I need to talk to you about that. I was like, friend, you need to go ahead and invest now, because the
Hmm.
longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be.
Right.
You can't expect us to do 12 months worth of bookkeeping in 30 days
Yeah.
unless you want to skip the line. And if you want to skip the line,
Right.
you got to pay the money to skip the line.
There you go.
That's what we call our catch up. And sometimes, a lot of times, those catch ups are really cleanups because
Yeah.
you don't remember half the stuff you bought. And we have to ask those questions. You like, oh, I don't remember stuff like that. And then once we have to go in there and work those numbers out, then we sit down and talk with you about those numbers. Then you bad because you're like, they need all the money that I made. Well, where's the rest of it? Cash out.
Hmm.
Then we got to go back. It's been some more time. You see what I'm saying? So if
Right.
you invest the first time, even if you make, because we have products that go, from the startup all the way to the community partners, right? If you
Yeah.
are a startup, we got GIP Academy. It's $97 a month, right? $100. Most of y'all just blow $100 in a month anyway, right?
Right.
If you reinvest that into yourself, you get access to our team. You still got to do the work, Well, you have access to us to be like, hey, am I doing this right? You know how much time and peace you're going to buy yourself just by having access to people who have your best interest at heart,
Right.
right? And we are resourceful. So when we see grants and stuff on our social media and all that, we send it. We send it to our email. Anytime we're doing something with a community partner like River City and all of that, we're going to share that with y'all. So you're not just getting a bookkeeper, you're getting a partner, a resource, right?
Yeah.
That's also going to provide you with the things that you need, right? So I'm loving this. We just
Yeah.
giving energy back and
That's
forth. I
that's
know
one
you're
hundred
gonna say
percent.
something. Go on, say something.
Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, again, it goes back to that word investment. And here's the thing, Sonia, and this is kind of just the real for people. If if you're going to get in business, the first thing we tell people is, before you run out and start structuring something and you watch a TikTok video that tell you to set up an LLC and all this other stuff, first thing you got to do is solidify your own household, right? You need to have 6 to 8 months saved up. So when you start thinking about, I want to have a business, you've got to become a colossal student. You got to be like you mentioned, being like Mr. Miyagi. Remember, his student Daniel's son, he he was constantly teaching him different lessons. Through it wasn't just all karate and kicking and all that. A lot of his lessons were wax on, wax off. Like you got to learn the discipline of you got to learn the endurance, right? So that's where people really have to start. So a lot of people are looking at, because we're constantly in this hustle desperation mode a lot of times, and we want to jump up. We want to go from A to Z. We want to go from start to I want to be a kingpin tomorrow. And there's a journey that has to take place. Entrepreneurship is a journey, and so that's what you've spoken on in your story. And so this is where your audience has to think. If you want to start a business, you know, right now, tomorrow may not be the day, right? You've got to start, you got to get your household in order. That may mean you might have to pick up a second little part-time job. And the biggest thing, Sonny, we talk about like bank statements. Let me say this, because your audience needs to hear this. And I'm trying not to rant on it, but we see a lot of folk who they have nice income. They got $10,000 come in and $10,000 go out, right? And that's most of America. Why? Because so many people live paycheck to paycheck and they're not willing to adapt their lifestyle. So one of the things that like I did it coming up is my wife and I, we had to adapt. When I wanted to be in business, we had to adapt our expenses, what we had going out. Meaning you got to take that bank statement, right? Pull it off, go, you know, again, y'all got to have bank accounts. Cash App ain't no bank, that ain't no real bank account. So get your bank account. Don't put folks on their own check systems and all that other stuff that's gonna mess y'all stuff up, right? Get that stuff cleaned up, and then get your bank account, right? And then pull the statement, and you gotta be, and this is, you'll indict yourself some, but that's okay, right? My wife and I will look, okay, now what? How many Amazon Primes we need? Ain't but two of us. Why we got four? Why you pay for Amazon Prime 4 times? Why we got two and three Netflix? You know, I see folks come in. I had a lady the other day come in. She got 4 Huey's charges in 1 week. Around the house, you got lunch. Okay. But I'm looking at Huey's charge $48. I was like, who was with you? That was just you? How many burgers you eat, girl? Right? Like, so, when you do that 3 or 4 times a week, she spent about $150 just to Huey's. It's like Huey's appreciate you, but what about your business? Right? So when you say you want to be a business and you want money from River City, you got to show your own investment, right? Which means you may need to go to the grocery store. Well, I don't cook. You got to learn. Same when you watch TikTok and learn everything else. You learned about Drake and Kendrick.
Oh.
Some of these folks know where Kendrick is right now.
Right. We don't know where their money at.
They don't know where their money at. Come on, Sonya. They don't know where the money went, but they know everywhere Drake is. They probably the ones sent the drone to Drake house.
So silly.
And then they don't know where the money went. So it's the prioritization of we got to get real about the first thing you do is if you got 5,000 coming in, 5,000 going out, you got to get that. How do I get that 5,000 going out to 4?
Mm-hmm.
Just get it to 4.
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means go in, look at what are some essentials. If I got cut out some of these snacks, if I got to tell these kids, hey, you're not going to be doing this or doing that, that's part of the investment sacrifice. And then communicate that to them.
That's
Hey,
right.
have your family be involved, let your spouse, all that. Hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're looking to build to have for us. We want to have something that we own for us, but it's going to require us to sacrifice some of these things. And so you have to be one, you have to showcase that to the lender, right? Because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for trustworthiness. I'm looking for commitment. And I'm looking for dogs. I'm looking for people that's going to fight. When things get tough, are they going to jump up and are they going to fight for the business and advocate for themselves? Or is it everybody else's fault but theirs, right? Oh, it's Sonia's fault. It's Ron's fault. It's the bank's fault. It's this person. It's that person. Like these are the things. So that's why you start out. So if you're listening to this, pod and share it with your friends and family, so you can listen to the episodes here with Sonia with GIP Financials. This is the thing, folks. Take that bank statement, sit down with your spouse. Y'all gotta get on the same page, right? Who's spending? One of y'all like to save, one of y'all like to spend. Y'all got to get that together, and then start planning out, and then be learning about the business. Ask questions, right? It's good. I like Squid Games too. Hey, you might have to cut that out for a minute, or you're gonna be playing. You don't want to get put in this. A lot of these folks get put in Squid Games now, so you don't want to be playing it. I like watching it. I don't want to play it. So that's how you got to learn your business. Like River City Capital, if you go start a CDFI, you got to be learning about the CDFI. Where are the people talking about it? You got to be watching the podcast about it. Who are the associations that support them, right? Um, what's the lingo? Who are the top players, right? You got to get on, like Sonny said, more LinkedIn, a little bit less, Facebook, a little bit less, some of this other stuff, right? You got to show that commitment. So that's how you start. Then, Sonia, to your point, like that's when you start looking at, okay, now I cut that 5,000 expenses down to 4. Let me see if I can get it 3,500. Let me see if I can get it to 3,000. Now you got $2,000 cushion. Now when it's time, when Sonia says, okay, it's $97 to invest in having access to her team, you're not tripping. You're not looking at, I ain't got to go ask mama them. I still owe mama money, so now you deal with that. I don't have to go jump, grab no credit card. I don't have to hustle, scam, do anything. I've made the commitment. I'm gonna put the $97. I'm gonna have access to the team. Like Sonia did on the social media. I'm making the investment. Now that frees up that time, right? So now what do I do at that time? That don't mean you go sip margaritas and lay up in the bed and do all that. That means now I'm gonna be investing in these other areas of the business. I'm gonna go sit down with Ron and sit down with my bank. I'm gonna learn from them how do I need to position myself to get capital, and then once I get capital, how do I put it in play to create revenue that leads to profitability, right? This ain't just about getting my hands on no money because MLG and W coming, on Tuesday, right? This ain't about Capital One been railing me out, student loan folks calling, sending letters. That's not what business lending's for. All right. It's about building business.
I love it. I love it. So, y'all, we're going to pause for the calls here. We're going to take a quick commercial break so you can learn a little bit more about GIP Academy and how it can help you get the funding that you deserve. So, check this out.
Are you stressed about taxes? Can't afford a bookkeeper? You're not alone. Many entrepreneurs owe the IRS or haven't filed past taxes because no one taught them how to manage their books. That is why we created GIP Academy, the financial coaching program designed for entrepreneurs who need help but aren't ready to pay for a bookkeeper. For $3 a day, we can help you fix past bookkeeping mistakes, organize your numbers for tax season, and increase profit with simple strategy. Join GIP Academy today and get the financial confidence you deserve.
All right, y'all, we are back. So I hope that you got a chance to look at GIP Academy and what it can do for you. We're here to transform businesses $1 at a time, right? So, Ron, we've already had a good conversation already. So let's go into the 3 points that you mentioned on LinkedIn. So one of the things Ron had 3 points about what being a bankable business means. So the first thing he mentioned, being a bankable business means that you have clear financial records that show cash flow stability. So Ron, I know we talked off and on in pieces about those financial records, but I really want you to answer, like, what does River City Capital look for regarding these financial records for
Yeah,
business?
no, 100%. So what we look for is businesses kind of after their first year, right? So once you've been in business a year, you've had a chance to actually do business and commit to it. So we're looking at your last 2 years tax returns, right? So like right now, of course, you're filing your 2024. So you may have 2024 ready, but you may not. If not, we look at your interim financials, your balance sheet, income statement. Right now we may look at that through the end of January, right, or through the first few days of February, right. But what that does specifically, what we do is we take that, and when our underwriter is looking for what was, of course, the wages, what was the income, right, what were the expenses, what was the tax exposure, right. And of course, so many different things depending on your structure, right? Whether you're an LLC, whether you're a C-Corp or S-Corp, depending on what that is, looking at that Schedule C, looking at the Schedule E, and what patterns do we see? And, Sonia, one of the big things you mentioned earlier, which is, if you're writing everything off, right? So if we see those 2 years and all you've done is just written off, well, that's your loan. And this is where people get upset with me. It's like, you got your loan from the IRS. You don't need, you're not looking to get a loan from me. You already got your loan, right? Now, the IRS is not a great lender at all. That's one of the worst lenders you get. If you talk about, you got these predatory folks. You don't want to borrow money from the IRS. Let me tell you. So, because they come for you and they know everything about you, they come, right? So instead of doing that, be true to your, financials, leverage, the tax code as you can. And that's where, Sonia and her team, excel in that. But so we look at that as far as the tax return and the interim statements, your balance sheet, your income statement, right? What we're looking for is, again, the consistency and the patterns. And as we have conversations with you, and we may have questions, are you prepared to answer those questions? Meaning, have you studied? It's just like in school, folks. When y'all go to school and they say it's a quiz, it's a test, you have to have done what? Study. When they say pop quiz and you ain't studied, everybody, when you see somebody's head go down like this, you know they ain't studied, right? So they get nervous. People folks get nervous, they ain't studied, right? And it shows on their face and their expression. So, have your financials, but be able to, answer questions. Not to say you gonna have the answer to everything, but you need to show that you're engaged in this. The other thing you talked a little bit about is bank statements. So we look at the last 12 months of bank statements. The reason we say 12 months is because we want to look at it. We want to make sure we give you credit for any cyclical nature, right? Some business models are better at certain times of the year than others, right? So we don't want to look at your ice cream business when it's been 20 degrees outside, right? We want to also be able to look at your ice cream business when it's 100 degrees outside, right? Folk are out moving, and you may have more sales in July than say November, right? Potentially. And so we want to make sure we give you credit for those. And or if you're currently in a down cycle, we want to make sure that, hey, well, we know that turns around because typically, between April and September, that's when they do, looks like 75% of their business, right? And that's the language, quite frankly, Sonia, that people have to speak in, right? When you're talking about your business, it needs to be numbers to narrative, numbers to narrative, right? You got the number. Now, what's the narrative? What does it mean? Right? And then it's not always going to be all rosy. We're not looking for the perfect, Picasso, right? Especially for us as a CDFI. That's why we exist, right? We know that there's going to be some blemishes. We expect that. Because if you do, guess what? If you don't have blemishes, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get one of my bank partners on the phone because you need to be speaking with the bank, right? And so that's what we look for. So we take those things, we underwrite that, and we look at a few different ratios real quick. So we look at your debt service, right? A lot of you hear that, but our industry doesn't do a good job of explaining what that is. So let me give it to you in English. For every dollar of debt that you have, right, we want to see you have at least $1.20 to pay that, or just what they call service that. That's why when they say you want a debt service ratio of 1.2, a lot of folks don't know what does that mean. 1.2, 1.3. That means for every dollar of debt, at least $1.20 or $1.30 to cover it after expenses, including the new debt. So whatever, if you come to us and you want $100,000, we're going to take the annual payments of that. Remember, everything in business is looking annually,
Yeah.
right? It's ain't like when y'all go to buy a car and stuff. They look at y'all personal income monthly,
Right.
right? Business income is looked at annually, and expenses are looked at annually, right? So $100,000 at 7%, right, on a 5-year note. You take that principal interest payment, we annualize it, that goes in that calculation. And so that's what you want to do to prepare is we have these financials, understand those things. We'll share that with you, what exactly we look at. So we look at that credit real quick. We go down to a 550, right? Does that mean you want to be a 550? No.
No.
That what that means is that we'll take a look, at your deal, as low as a 550 score. But you want to start looking at your profile, right? You got to start paying stuff on time. That's a big thing. Set up on auto draft, the fixed stuff, let it roll. Most of y'all have discrepancies on your report, right? That are not your fault at all, but could be hurting you.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to pull it up. You got to look at it. Credit won't fix itself because, I have folks tell me, Sonia, Ryan, I don't want to look at my credit. That's negative. Yeah, that's going to ruin my day. Listen, you trying to have business.
Right.
We ain't worried about that.
Right.
So we're going to look at credit. We do a soft pull, Sonia. So we don't create an inquiry. So we see the full report. And what we're looking for is, if you've got, a lot of charge-offs, and you've got, several like really tough blemishes on the profile, not just about the score, but we're looking at that overall profile. You've had multiple bankruptcies, things like that. We want to understand the story, right? Because that's not the only thing to hinder you. So don't feel like, well, I don't want to apply because of my credit. Pull it, pay, make the investment. Don't be pulling this Credit Karma and all this other stuff. That's just marketing, stuff to get your information. You get the free annual credit report or whatever that is each year, or just pay for it. It's $30, right? Y'all drop $30. Some of y'all don't even turn around and pick it up. So y'all spend $30 on a lot of things. So make the investment. You look at your credit profile. The more active you are with it, the quicker it's going to be to repair it, and all credit can be restored. I don't care what you have done. And trust me, I've been around 20-something years from banking and CDFI. I didn't see the worst of the worst, and I didn't see the best of the best. So they don't need to be embarrassed by me. I didn't see it all. So I'm not going to call you out, right? We're here to help. And so again, I'm gonna wrap up, Sonia, with all of those things, come together, those documents, and then your business plan, right? So your business plan is part of that, your projections, and have you actually read it? Don't go check GPT your business plan and come running up in my office. Don't do that. And you ain't read nothing. You just chat GPT, you copy and paste it to Word or PDF, you saved it as a PDF, and then you fire it to me and Sonia in the email. In my business plan. And then guys get to meet, and then they come in and you ask them, and after the name of the business, they don't know nothing, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't play like that, right? We want to be able to help you and get the capital and help you be bankable. So that's the big piece is you have to come in having studied, know your industry, and then the last thing, Sonia, is, once you have the narrative on those things, be able to defend it. Right? Even if you may not agree with my assessment of it, right? Because I'm looking at it from a lender's perspective. I'm looking at what other investments we've done and how successful those have been, that sort of thing. But you may need to, advocate for yourself. That's also part of being a business owner. So once you've studied and then you can speak to things that are mitigants. Yeah, Sonia, we're not as strong here, and I understand our industry, right? Like if you have a restaurant downtown, and then, me and Sonia pull up, we see 30, 40 restaurants that closed downtown, and you come showing up with one. I'm already gonna be pessimistic, right? I ain't trying to invest in the 41st, right? But you may come and say, well, yes, those were those challenges. Here's what we're doing. Here's our plan to mitigate those, and here's where you see it in the financials. This is why we need. This is what when we take this 35,000. This is what we're going to be able to do, and it's going to generate 350,000 in additional revenues for us. Those are the things that you have to be able to do as a business owner.
I love that. I love that. Man, yeah, that's all. I will keep going. I will keep going because I can talk about that too. All right. So we talked about clear financial records, and thanks, Ron, for sharing the actual process with River City Capital because folks need to hear that, as well. So the second thing, and Ron already kind of sprinkled a little information on this, is the proper legal structure, right? Because being in the proper legal structure affects what we call lender risk. So, Ron, can you just give us a little bit more insight about that?
All right, so I'm gonna do like I do in the news studio. Which camera is mine? So this is my camera. Let me talk to the American people. All right, all y'all don't need no LLC. Okay, all y'all, I know the folk on TikTok told you, and the folk in Instagram reels and all that. LLC was a great structure, right, and can come into play. You got to begin researching your industry. This is, going back to what I said earlier. This is why structure is important because one, business structure is designed, and Sonia, you may have some thoughts with this too. Business structure is designed on one, how you're going to manage your financial situation, particularly your tax situation, and what exposure does the business and yourself personally or any investors have, right? Any investors or shareholders in your company. So it's about protection, and it's also about that structure on how you're going to engage with yourself, the leadership, and with shareholders and investors. So one of the things you have to do, and if you don't have a ton of money right now to hire an attorney, what I would suggest is, again, you've got resources like Sonia and her team, as you mentioned with GIP Financials, to help you identify based on your business structure, based on kind of your current situation, based on what you feel that your liability is going to be, based on if you're going to have any type of investors and how you're going to raise capital, right? So as you get into the structure, for us as a lender, one of the knocks that's going to have sole proprietorship, right? So we tough to get capital as sole proprietor because you're using your social. It's really just you, right? And there's really no protections, right? Ron shows up, anybody can come in and sue Ron and take anything, everything that's under his name, right? You've got, the subchapter, S-Corp, you got C-Corp, you got all the different structures. You got to make sure that it works, for you. From a lending perspective, having a structure, whether it's an LLC, an S-Corp, a C-Corp, general partner, limited partner, whatever that is, those are going to be the better structures, right? Those are going to be the better because they showcase one, an investment in the business to have a structure. It also shows that you're going to have protections, and it also can lay out, very well through your operating agreement who's making decisions and how you're handling investors, right? At any level, whether you could get venture capital, you have an investor, if you have debt capital, like what we provide and the bank provides, who has the ownership and who's responsible for what. And so that's where having that structure is, from the very beginning, and it could evolve over time. As your business evolves, there may be a need to evolve the structure, and you have to be open to that as well.
Exactly. I know you feel about the LLCs like I feel about S-Corp. And we're actually going to do some content. We're doing what we call fake news, where we're actually calling some folks to the carpet, like, hey, if you've seen this video, I'm just going to walk you through what this means, right? Uh, so yeah, so I think that those things are important. And you brought up something too, because I know a couple of workshops we talk about, the importance of entity, and especially with Tennessee, because I'm Tennessee's LLC is $300 a year, right? So again, that's something to definitely consider. I agree with you 150%. If you're starting out in business, first you have to a lot of things you got to consider, especially like proof of concept and all that type of stuff. So before you invest that $300, let's see. And then also from a state compliance standpoint, you won't even, as long as I think it's anything under $3,000, you won't even need to do a business license. So just take those things into consideration. That's kind of like opportunities for you to kind of play around and research R&D, if you will, to figure out what's going on before we start, making those type of investments, right? Because Ron, I've seen it just recently when it comes to S-Corps, like they're hearing stuff on social media. I had a prospective client. They got their entity done through a third party. They recommended them to another third party accounting, firm system, if you will. And they recommended that they, be an S Corp. And they're a startup. They made less
Mm-hmm.
than $10,000. Like y'all, you can't even look and breathe S Corp until you have made significant profit, not growth,
Correct.
profit. Because when
And
it comes to those types of, tax returns, those tax returns are filed earlier, right?
correct.
And they
Correct.
carry their own set, of requirements and things like that. The owner has to be on payroll with a reasonable salary. You have to, purchase payroll software and all that type of stuff. All those things cost money. And you have to be making a significant amount of profit in order to do those types of things. And those folks that's recommending all this stuff, it's just tax savings. Where, friend? If you ain't making no money, you guys gonna be spending more money, and then you have to revoke the S corp. And then if you try to operate under that same business name and your S corp is revoked, you can't apply for it for another 5 years. Then what happens if you boom and then go, everything boom and you start being successful? You know,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you cooking with that. You cooking with that, Sonya. That's it. That's it. And so that's why I say, when we go back to that study to show yourself approved, this is why, and one of the things that we're looking at River City Capital is really kind of slowing down to really help businesses more. We talked about this a little bit offline. This is why it's so important in our community and communities across the country, not just Memphis. Sonia, that for us as a CDFI lender, we have to really kind of slow down. So we're looking at kind of doing more of a lending cycle, right? So think of how the grant cycle is, where there's this kind of finite amount of time where you take in applications. So we take in everybody's application, underwrite those. We've budgeted out how much we want to deploy. We approve those folks, get the money deployed, and we spend more time doing these things like what we're talking about. How do we ensure people have the proper structure? How do we ensure they have a good strategic marketing plan? Who are those resources to help people get in front of their target audience? How do we help them on the human resources, technology side? And how do we help them become more, hireable, bankable type business? Do they have the infrastructure in place that they can go hire people, right? And have a bankable business where they can walk in any bank and walk out with what they need. And that's really the goal. And so rather than where we have been, which has been, and this is kind of going with that structure piece, is, Sonia, we've kind of been a little bit of trying to be everything to everybody and responding and reacting to whoever shows up, right? And for people out there, to get an understanding of how our organization structure works, right? And so we have what I call this healthy tension between how we capitalize and how we deploy, right? Contrary to the popular belief, I'm not Scrooge McDuck. I don't have no vault back here where I'm swimming in money and all that type of thing. I ain't doing that. We have to. Yeah, we have great support partners, but we're not a depository, right? So we're not taking everybody's payroll check, direct deposit, and leaving some in the branch and investing the rest or lending the rest. And we can't just call the Federal Reserve and order money, right? So they can't just print it up for us and we order it and have it with a bricks truck. We have to be good stewards of our money. So that's what we want to do. And I know we'll be talking some more about that and how you guys will kind of continue to support these efforts, Sonia, which we appreciate. But those are the things, again, as you look at the structure and we look at our numbers, that's what we're thinking
Love it, love it, love it. And then the last point of being a bankable business means you have to have an actionable plan for scalability. And then he put in parentheses, yes, banks care about your vision too. So let's talk a little
Yeah,
bit about that.
yeah. All of us, banks, any lender cares about what your vision is, right? Because we want to know where you're going, right? We can look and see. We can take, financials. All these things are snapshots, right? Underwriting. I always say is not an exact science, right? Think about this, Sonia. If you look at my financials, I can pull you whatever I want to pull you, but that don't mean right before I pulled it, I wired all the money to uh, Dubai, and
Mm-hmm.
there's
Right.
nothing in there. So I could do that minutes before I give you the financials. It's all a snapshot. So then, you know, with that, we want to know for everyone as an owner, what is your vision? And you think about how do you project out 3 to 5 years for yourself and with the business. And what we're looking to hear is, there's no exact right answer, right? So you don't need, folks don't need to sit around and try to stress over what I think Ron want to hear or what I think Sonia want to hear, right? This is where's your vision when you study and you're looking at the industry and you're looking at yourself. Where do you want to be, right? And are is it pie in the sky? Are you gracefully limiting yourself? Right? Like, what's again, within the reasons, do you want where do you want the business to be? And then articulate how do you want your partners, and in this case, the bank or the CDFI, to help you do that. That's why you're there in front of the partners. We're here to help you do it, but you got to tell us where you're going, right? So when you put that address into the GPS, you need to share with us where you're going. So if you're in Collierville and you say you want to go downtown to the Renaissance Center or the FedEx Forum, wherever you want to go, then that's what you have to articulate. But we got to see you put that address in the GPS before we get in the car with you, right? And so there's many different ways to get there, right? Some folk take the expressway. Some folk will ride Poplar all the way down or Walnut Grove all the way down. Some folk will jump on the expressway, jump off at somewhere. There's all kind of different ways to get from Collierville to downtown, right? That's what you're trying to do. So there's no one way. It's just what is the way, and that's where the vision comes into play.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So there you have it, folks. We have been just, exchanging ideas and thoughts and realities for almost an hour because that's how much we love y'all. And this is really important. This is so, 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 so important. That's why we want to make sure that we have folks on our podcast that are going to give it to you straight, no chaser. And so, Ron, I really appreciate you coming and sharing those things with us. Now, I know you had mentioned earlier that you got an opportunity that you want to share. Did you want to talk about that now?
Yeah. So we are. We've got kind of several things going. We've got some workshops coming up that we're going to be doing at the various community centers, starting in Raleigh. So I'll get that date out to Sonia. But we're going to do kind of a round robin at various community centers to have extend these same conversations in various communities and really get down to the nitty gritty. I really want these to be some working type areas where we can actually sit down with you and actually do some work. We're not just speaking and pontificating. We can actually sit down with you and say, okay, let's really kind of move forward there. So yeah, so we've got a number of these type of things, and some areas that we're looking at, for next fiscal year, that I kind of mentioned earlier, where we want to be able to work with our partners and really help identify your business and how we can spend time with your business, provide you the capital. So let's get you the capital as expeditiously as possible, right? I use my TI word, as expeditiously as possible. And then how do we go about, Sonia, really helping you build a business over time? So yeah, there's a number of different things that we're going to be doing, definitely for sure, to tap in with.
I love it. I love it. We're so excited. So, whatever you got going on, just tell us and we are going to be there. Right?
Absolutely.
Love it. So
Yep,
tell people,
absolutely.
yeah. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt
Yeah, no, and another thing, going back to some of the things that we were talking about, as we look at these things, for your audience, really think about your cash flow. Like for us, when we could do those analysis, we're a cash flow lender. So we're looking at your ability to repay, right? So those are the things we want to teach about in these kind of really active workshops, right? That I talked about earlier. I want you to bring your information. We're going to sit down on the table. We're going to help map out, right? Your next steps. But one of the things that you're going to hear from us is about cash flow, and think about that within your business. And so, those are some key things because you want to get approved. And then I'm tell you folks how you get approved, right? You get approved by one having study, have those documents ready. Go ahead and begin building a relationship with us or your lender ahead of time, right? Don't wait till the folks come and give you the final written warning to come running up, talking about I need capital tomorrow. And y'all don't run up in Sonia's office talking about, oh, my financial, and the folk coming for me and they're gonna be here tomorrow, and I need you to fix. Don't do that, right? It's about planning and being ahead. So go ahead and build those relationships with us early, because now we can help advocate for you more. The more we know you, Sonia used the term know, like, trust, the more that happens. And that happens with a relationship. That don't happen if you make a transaction, we gonna make a transaction. And you're not gonna like that. So go ahead and jump in. Go ahead and start now.
Right, I love it. So one of my other coaches, Marco Perez, he says
Mm,
especially when it comes to funding, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
mm,
Right. So
100%.
yeah, and I agree with that. Right. And so y'all, we are so serious about making sure that our businesses, especially our businesses here in Memphis, win. Right. We have so many small businesses, so many great ideas, so many innovators and pioneers. And we want to make sure to put the support behind y'all so you can have the win to sell on and do great things. Right. So
100%.
right. So Ron, how can they get in touch with you and River City Capital?
Yeah. So, follow us on, all the social medias at RCC Investment. You can follow me at Ron Brooks Capo, CAPO, Ron Brooks Capo, on the various social medias. You can email me, Ron, RON, at rivercitycapital.org, O-R-G, so Ron at rivercitycapital.org. And then you can visit us at rivercitycapital.org. So rivercitycapital.org is where you can, and that's where you can begin the process with us. And like I say, very, very shortly, we're going to be adapting that process to make it even that much more impactful and that much more quicker for those that we can underwrite during kind of specific times of the year. And so, yeah, so I'm excited about things, Sonia. I know there's a lot of noise out here, and headlines and stuff and things going on in Washington and whatnot, but I appreciate your support and the things that you're doing. And I think we're all trying to navigate, through the noise, and we'll do so together. But you guys reach out to me if I can be a resource, and definitely reach out to Sonia and her team because they're a great resource as well. So don't y'all be running around talking, I ain't got no resources. Ain't nobody, you got to reach out to the folks. We can't come, I don't know what you need until you tell me. Right? So that's where we are.
Love it, love it, love it. So you heard it here first, guys. So thank you again for first of all, thank you, Fred, for coming in and sharing with us, and thank you guys for listening to the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. So as a reminder, every other Thursday you get your podcast episode, but we're incorporating something a little new. So every bi-weekly you'll get a podcast episode, and then after that you'll get a live Q&A, right? So, Ron, I'll let you know when we air this, and then I'll let you know when we're gonna do the Q&A, because we're gonna at least a little 30 minutes to have folks, because I know folks are gonna have questions about this one.
Oh, for
I
sure.
know they're gonna have
Definitely.
questions about this one for sure. All right, y'all. So we will catch
Yeah.
you guys on the next episode. Thank you guys for watching. And Ron, thank you again for
Yeah. Thank you
sharing.
so, Laura. I
All
appreciate
right.
that. This has been dope. Shout out to everybody out there.
Likewise. Y'all take care. Hey y'all, thanks so much for tuning in to the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. Again, my name is Sonia Jones of GIP Financials, your Mr. Miyagi of Money. And look, if you learned something from this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Make sure that you like, that you subscribe. If you have some little nuggets, add some comments to the comment section of this podcast. But most importantly, I want you to share it with your fellow entrepreneurs. We want to share this good old fundamental business finance education so you can have the tools necessary to know your numbers and grow your business. All right. Take care, y'all. I'll catch you on the next episode.